Congress did in the last 2 years. This is really a focused central point of the next 2 years of the president's first term. And this comes ahead of an anticipated and expected reelection announcement. Take a listen to some of President Biden's remarks yesterday.
Building a network of electric vehicle charging stations, and we're going to build 550,000 of them across all of America. We're driving up and down the coast or on I-85. Charging stations will be as easy to find as gas stations are today, and that's a promise. The largest investment in manufacturing in North Carolina history, $5 billion they're investing.
Now, Biden, his cabinet officials, the vice president are all hitting 20 states over the next 3 weeks to tout accomplishments from the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act, all of these priorities that Biden got over the finish line. This has really become a central focus not only for Biden, but also for other members of his administration and Democrats on Capitol Hill. The Vice President Kamala Harris visiting Democrats last month, telling them that this is what they need to really stress, because it's something that it's difficult for Americans to see the effects of, since infrastructure projects take such a long time.
A long time indeed. Julie, wanted to check in with the debt ceiling fight. There's been some recent back and forth recently between Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. What's going on there?
Yeah, the two men are actually not talking, according to Speaker McCarthy, who sent a letter to the Biden administration, to President Biden yesterday, asking him to reignite these negotiations over the debt ceiling. Remember, Republicans' position, especially in the House, is if they're going to agree to lift the debt ceiling, they want to see spending cuts. On your screen now, you're actually seeing President Biden's response to the Speaker, in which McCarthy to Biden actually said, quote, Biden replied to McCarthy saying, quote, "My hope is that House Republicans can present the American public with your budget plan before Congress leaves for the Easter recess so that we can have an in-depth conversation when you return." This actually comes 2 months after the two first met over the debt ceiling. Biden continues to say he refuses to negotiate spending cuts in conjunction with that, but McCarthy firing back, saying, listen, we need to have more meetings. The debt ceiling deadline is coming up in a couple of months, but Biden continuing to stress he needs to see McCarthy's plan first.
All right. And now the default, though, would be on June 5th. That's the deadline to avoid this. So what happens next, especially if at this point they're not talking? Do we think they will soon?
Yeah, exactly. I was at the St. Patrick's Day lunch a couple of weeks ago where Biden and McCarthy were seated together, and I was watching for signs that they were discussing this, when now we found out, according to McCarthy, he actually asked President Biden, when are we going to meet next? Let's get this going. And Biden replied, when am I going to see your Republican budget? Now, you mentioned the default deadline, according to Treasury, is June 5th. Other experts say could have a little bit more wiggle room, but the bottom line is the chances of a default is already sending the market spiraling, especially in the wake of the bank collapse. And so McCarthy and Biden really need to get on the same page about this. But again, Biden saying not until we see your budget, and it's not clear when Republicans plan to put that forward.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
Well, coming up this hour on Morning News Now, Gwyneth Paltrow's defense team on the attack in court, the science and technology on display for the jury, an effort to poke holes in the plaintiff's story.
Simply a judge in a trial doing my job.
Also, he was at the helm of a trial that captivated Americans for months. Well, now the judge who oversaw Alec Murdaugh's double murder conviction is speaking out.